G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading an old newspaper article about bunyips, so we'll get into it. This was published in the Wingham Chronicle and Manning River Observer on Friday, the 15th of December, 1944. Titled The Bunyip by W.J. Enright, F.R.A.I. I received an inquiry recently from a friend of mine who is a noted collector of old Australian books about a narrative of Charles Naseby to John Fraser LLD of West Maitland, who conducted a high school there to Church Street. Inquiry failed to reveal a copy, but I learnt later it was communicated by Dr. Fraser in 1882 to the Ethnographic Institute of Paris, and published in English later in quarto form. And turning to the Mitchell Library as expected, I found a copy there. Charles Naseby wrote, "When I was a boy, I lived at Lochinvar and conducted a bus service between that village and West Maitland for some years." He stated that in 1833 his family settled down at Bunyips, an outstation of Yangabi, near a large waterhole just opposite Mount Gravesend. On one occasion, he and a companion were in the water pulling a boat, trying to catch some swans, and he observed floating on the water near the middle a huge object which he had not seen before. He paddled up to it and found it to be a round, scaly back with no head, tail, foot or fin that he could discover. He struck it with its oar and forthwith it disappeared below. Was this the Yahoo or the Bunyip? What was it? He later heard a story about a Debbil, but as the incident did not fall within his experience, he does not vouch for its truth. George Long and his mate yarded sheep at sundown for fear of Aborigines, and was sitting down at their supper when the dogs come running over in great alarm, and the shepherds drove them out. But presently they returned, evidently frightened by something outside. Long rose, and peeping out the door, he saw something under a tree at a distance, like an Aborigine, but considerably larger. Whistling to his companion to bring him the gun, he raised to his shoulder, aiming at the breast of the Aborigine and fired. At once the object began to move, and with huge strides fled away across the river, making a clattering noise on the shingle as with the hoofs of a horse. Unable to satisfy themselves what it was, they discovered several footprints, and as soon as the Aborigine saw them, he exhibited every symptom of terror and muttered, "Debbil." They said, "Nonsense, Debbil does not come to white men." "No," he said, "but Debbil, him come look for Aborigine." The marks were like those of an emu, but there was one big claw which penetrated several inches into the ground. The above was evidently taken down verbatim by Dr. Fraser. The story of the Bunyip, according to Charles Fenner, the South Australian geologist, has much in common throughout a considerable part of Australia, that it is fair to assume that the myth had a basis on some common fact of natural history. The late Professor J.W. Gregory, according to Fenner, believed that the Kati Makara of the Central Australian Aborigines was based on the knowledge of the living diprotodon. Dr. Bennett, the naturalist, who was on the Lower Hunter in the 50s of last century, found that there was a tradition among the Aborigines of a huge animal that lived on the river flats and swamps, and he thought it was the diprotodon, a huge wombat-like animal weighing at least a ton, skeletons of which have been found in various parts of Australia. When perusing the remarks about the creature fired at, one must remember that it was seen at night when courage is low, object not clearly seen, and imagination quickened by previous stories of the Debbil. The natives believed in a being called Koing or Gotu. I have heard stories of it from the Atherton tableland to Lake Macquarie, and undoubtedly they held it in dread. In the ranges to the west of Mount Manning, on the old Wollombi St Albans Road, I have seen huge footprints on the rock carved, undoubtedly with stone implements. One on Burragurra, or the Devil's Rock, the old Aborigines said was made by the Debbil when he jumped from there to Big Yango. The story of the Bunyips is, however, on a different plane. Governor Latrobe of Victoria wrote of his existence in 1821 and said there were two different kinds of bunyip, and he had drawings made of them, but whether made by himself or as a result of information received, history does not say, and the two drawings have been lost. But I have no doubt that the story had some substratum of truth. He took the drawings with him to Tasmania. There was an animal reputed to be a bunyip on the Murrumbidgee, but it was found to be a seal, and later on a seal was found up the Darling River some 900 miles from the sea, which was the foundation of some bunyip stories. The tradition is widespread, and it is certain that no living inland Aborigine had seen a seal before, and he would readily assume that when he saw it, it was a bunyip. The creature seen by Mr. Naseby clearly was not a seal, but it may have been an outsized Murray cod. If it was, the tail would have been showing, nor his fins, when it was reposing with its back above the water. A Maitland solicitor, who has long since passed away from this world, told me that Richmond Vale Lagoon, a large freshwater hole near Richmond Vale Colliery, was reputed to be home of a bunyip when he was a boy living near it. And on one occasion, while fishing in the lagoon, he saw appearing on the surface what looked to him like the back of a huge boar pig, which disappeared after a few seconds and was never seen again by him. One of the largest sized eels would appear as he described it. In tradition, however, is so widespread that I feel certain that some of the huge extinct animals, such of those remains that have been found in the muds of the Lake Callabonna, are the basis of the tradition. In central Queensland, at Rankin Springs, Garraville, Merriwarra and Wellington, New South Wales, as well as in Victoria, remains of the Diprotodon have been found, and on the Nullarbor Plains, WA, I crossed the Nile riverbed whereupon its traces were discovered. Large animals have existed in Australia in times gone by, but they became extinct before man arrived in Australia. The Diprotodon became extinct in recent geological times, and as his existence was certainly coeval with that of man, I believe he was the basis of the tradition. Perhaps there may be bunyip holes in your district, but I have never heard of them. West Maitland, December 1944. I like that story. I like the guys that were yarding sheep, and they went and had their supper, and then the dogs come running in and alarmed them there was something outside, so they went out to have a look, and George Long saw it, and he said it looked like an Aborigine, but considerably larger. And he fired a shot at it, at its breast, and it took off, and he said it made huge strides and fled across the river, and as it ran along the shingles of the rocks, it sounded like hooves of a horse, and then they said that the tracks that they found, and I was thinking this was going to be a yowie they were talking about, but then they found the footprints that it left, and they said it was like that of an emu, and there was one big claw that penetrated the ground several inches. And this to me sounds like some of the Bunyip stories that I've read that the Aborigines have talked about, where they said it looks like a man, but it has feet like an emu, which is really interesting. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.